Hi, welcome back to Midwest Running. I'm Robert here with a shoe review. Today I want to talk about the Tracksmith Eliot Racer. This is a shoe that I purchased with my own money. I have no obligation to Tracksmith to provide any kind of review or any further information. I'm just going to speak just from my own experiences here and hope you guys get a little bit of an idea about what the shoe is for and, what it's good at, what it isn't. So, starting off, this is a race day shoe from the folks at Tracksmith. It comes in at a cost of $280. It comes in two different colorways. You got this ivory gold, which just looks fantastic. It's a very classy looking shoe from Tracksmith. Another version of it comes in a navy color with the same gold sash on it. A little bit about just the overall construction of the shoe. The upper is primarily an engineered mesh, that is punctuated by some really nice micro suede elements here. So along kind of the tongue and then even along the collar and down into the heel itself. Just very, very nice and, dare I say, luxurious. For the money you're paying for, we're talking Alpha Fly money. This is just a much more plush experience, a much more luxurious experience. It's looking after you. A little bit about just the design of this shoe itself. You can tell it doesn't look like a really high stack shoe. It's really keeping kind of a more traditionalist, very classic Tracksmith look to it. But the real secret is the fact that inside of the shoe is a ATPU midsole that is very, very thick, as you can see. I'm not going to pull it all the way out, but it is removable, theoretically replaceable, according to the folks at Tracksmith, at least when they were initially talking about it. So what that all comes together is the actual stack of foam inside the shoe is like this. So on their specs, they say that it's a 38 mil heel and then 38.5 in the front, which gives you a 7.5 millimeter drop. In their design specs, the weight is 218 grams, which is 7.7 ounces. Really just across the board here, materials are all premium. You have that, as I said, you have the engineered mesh upper, you have this ATPU drop-in midsole, there's a carbon plate underneath that, and then the outside, or the outer layer of the midsole is a P-Bax, they're calling it a chassis. On the underside here, you have a very good amount of rubber coverage. Anything that's gold on here, with the exception of the rabbit, is all rubber. That rubber itself is actually quite grippy. It has a really nice feel underfoot. Only in the most slick kind of aid station kind of situations would you feel like any degree of slip, but even then that's minimal. Then the other thing I find interesting is instead of going with the classic, the more common sawtooth laces that we're seeing on a lot of race day shoes, it's using what looks like a really traditional lace. It's a nice material, same kind of softer material, but on the one side of it, on the underside, it's got a bit of like a rubberized compound to it. So it does tend to grip a little bit better. I will get into some of the things I've learned about it just from my running in it so far. In terms of comfort, fit, it's true to size. It's very comfortable. In my size, US men's size 11, I didn't have any issue. It's not too long, it's not too short, it's not too tight. Honestly, this is just about the most comfortable race day shoe I've ever put on my foot. It just really, just from heel to toe, just fits well. Underfoot, the feeling it's soft. It's got a little bit of plushness to it. Has a very, very good bouncy, responsive feel. Like you definitely get that energy return on it. The upper seems to be very breathable. I haven't really put it through the tests of warm weather quite yet, but on the cooler days, I felt that my feet were sufficiently cool and even not as wet toward the end of the race. Frankly, this is probably the most comfortable race day super shoe you're ever gonna find. Things that really stood out about the performance on it, it just has a really impressive energy return. Like you just feel like it just wants to push you further, faster, just really get you on to the next step and on to the next part of your race. That being said, if you even look at the upper here, or if you look at the design here, it's not a very aggressive toe spring. It's surprisingly gentle. It has a little bit more of a kind of a traditional feel to it, which is nice. So when you're going for toe off, you're going to be working your feet a little bit more than say like an Endorphin Pro or anything with a much more pronounced rocker. That being said, this shoe is very nicely through the transitions. That constant, like that solid rubber on the lateral surface of the outsole really just gives a nice smooth transition throughout. If I were to compare it to any other shoe on the market, the only one that kind of comes to mind really is kind of the New Balance Elite V4. That's a very similar kind of shoe in my book, but the upper on that is nowhere near as nice as this one. And in general, I feel that this is a shoe that will actually probably work well for almost any runner. Now, depending on what you're using it for, if you're looking at race day versus as a trainer, super trainer kind of shoe, this really kind of fits into that mold. I think that there's a lot of use case for it. The amount of rubber on the outsole here is going to give you a little bit more durability. The liner itself is good. The insole here, this drop-in ATPU midsole here, it's going to have a lot of life in it. We're talking, I suspect this is going to surpass the durability of a lot of other super shoes. As I said, the energy return on it is very impressive. I did a race in it. I did the Shamrock Shuffle 8K here in Chicago. That was the first time I was even putting the shoe on, to be quite honest, other than just trying it when I first tried it on when I got the order. And that morning went really well. I set a new PR on that course with this shoe on, and that included one little hiccup, which was actually that the right shoe came untied. And I have a little bit of a note about that we'll get to. Then shortly thereafter, I had a 21-mile long run, part of my marathon build, and I opted to wear this again because after that experience at Shamrock, I'm like, hey, maybe this will be my race day shoe. I'm not entirely sure yet. Still not entirely sure. That being said, I felt really good throughout it. It felt nicely supportive, even as my form was definitely breaking down on that 21 miles. I definitely felt that it had supported me throughout. I didn't feel like it was punishing me for, getting a little bit more tired. As I said, that energy return, I think, really plays into how good my legs felt. Honestly, the day after doing 21 miles, I was moving up and down stairs and doing my normal day-to-day stuff without even thinking about how much I had run the day before. So that perfectly summarizes, I think, that some of the pros of it. As I said before, the comfort, it's unmatched, really. I haven't had this kind of comfort in a race day shoe. And frankly, among even some nicer tempo trainers and stuff like that, this is way up there on comfort level. That being said, there's a couple things that I do have concerns about. One of them is this drop-in midsole, actually. The ATPU in it, and maybe it'll get better with some time, I don't know, but it is definitely kind of squeaky, especially at slower paces. Once you kind of get going in it, I don't hear it as much, or at least it might still be just as bad. I'm just not paying attention to it as much. But it is definitely has a pronounced creakiness to it. I don't know if you can hear that. And that I thought would maybe go away after some mileage in it. But, I got just shy of 30 miles on these right now, and it hasn't really changed. It hasn't gotten worse, but definitely hasn't gotten better. The other thing I mentioned is that the laces on my 8K, and this is the first time I was wearing them, I probably put a little bit too much faith in that kind of rubberized texture on it. And so at about the halfway point, I noticed my right shoe had come untied. In retrospect, I probably could have just finished the race with it untied and it would have been just fine. But I you know, being a newer shoe, I figured I didn't want to risk that. So stopped, tied my shoes, you know, not a huge penalty. I'm not worried about it. It's not like I was competing for any real place or anything. So, so yeah, that one little thing. That being said, if you do a bit more of a locking knot, there's a few different ways you can tie it. If you just do a little bit more of a deliberate tie on this, I don't think you're going to have any issues. During my 21, I had 0 issues with it coming loose, untied, anything. It stayed perfectly how I started the run with. You know, if I were to make any comparisons, really the biggest comparison, as I said before, would be to that New Balance SC Elite V4. I kind of described that one and this one in the same terms. Like, I kind of, despite the cost, I kind of call this like the democratic kind of everyman's super shoe. There are some runners that are going to get more out of it than others, but I think that those are both shoes that anyone can pretty much run in and not have any major issues. You know, I put that up there, and this one outdoes it on comfort for sure, but also that it is coming at a more premium price tag. I do want to take a second here to kind of compare the Tracksmith lineup of shoes now that we have 2 of them. And what I think is kind of interesting is when you compare it to what they're now calling the Eliot Runner as opposed to just the Eliot, you can see overall, if I kind of line them up here, both of them have a very overall rather similar profile. A little bit more of that rocker noted on the Racer, but again, it's nowhere near as aggressive as some other shoes here. The Runner itself, heavier, a little bit more premium materials on it still compared to your typical daily trainer. Of note, the midsole on this is also a drop-in on here, non-plated, but the drop-in on this is, I believe, Piba, or Peback's actually brand name. I'm not entirely sure. I think the entire midsole on this is Piba. I have heard somebody mention that this outer kind of chassis might actually be an EVA. It doesn't matter to me. Both of them, like whatever it is, frankly, it runs nicely. This is a very just comfortable daily trainer. I stepped away from it for a while. I wasn't using it. Got this new colorway in, and I'm just as happy with it again. In fact, I kind of after running in this guy, I really feel that this shoe has a more obvious place in a lineup. The idea being between this shoe and the Racer, I think you can have a great 2-shoe marathon training and racing lineup. You can get your tempo and your long runs in this. You could do a lot of your daily miles in this guy. You could probably take this one a little bit longer than I have. I just haven't ventured out into my longer runs with it quite yet. But even up to about 8-10 miles, this one has been really comfortable. So I don't see why you couldn't go longer in it. But definitely for some of those bigger days, I would recommend this guy. There's enough rubber on the bottom here to get through an entire, I think, training cycle with it and on race day. To conclude, you know, I enjoy the shoe. I think the Eliot Racer is a fantastic addition to just the overall milieu of super shoes. There's so many on the market now. It's not really a question of will it work for me. It's more a question of which one will work for me. And I think that if I were to compare this, you know, across the board, this is one that I can almost recommend to anybody without much of a concern, just based on how it feels underfoot. I'm definitely more of a midfoot striker, and the energy return is excellent on it. I was intentionally doing a bit of heel striking just to see how it felt, and it just carries you right through. There's just fantastic roll forward on it. Really no concerns. In terms of the actual build quality, again, it's excellent. I do have concerns about that creakiness that you get. Who knows? If that goes away, awesome. If it doesn't, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. It's just enough to be there, but once you're really going, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So really, I'm just curious, you know, if you're somebody who's used the Tracksmith Eliot Racer, or you're curious or you have any other questions, please drop a comment below. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and help kind of encourage more content to keep coming.